Hello and welcome to the number one podcast in the Southeast. My name is Rocky and this is Matt and this is the Footy Ramble. So I'll go first. We're just going to introduce ourselves. So as I said, my name is Rocky. I go for the Bombers.
Team that sucks. The team sucks.
Thank you. We're on the way to a premiership. I'm just going to say that out there. I reckon.
Oh, we're closer. We're closer, but I can't say much after what's happened on the weekend.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah. Anyway,
we'll see.
We digress.
So how did I get into footy? Well, don't really know. It kind of just was on TV. You start watching it, and then you get hooked onto it. The reason I go for the Bombers, well, what happened was it was Essendon versus Hawks. I think it was back in like 2008 or 2009. I think we were getting smashed, which wouldn't be surprising because we are the Bombers and we haven't been that great for a long time. But my dad, he's an Essendon supporter, and I was like, I was watching, I was like very interested, and then my dad was like, "Nah, go for the Bombers, go for the Bombers." So from then, I became a Bombers supporter, and endless heartbreaks, sadness, crying,
devastation.
It's been devastation.
I feel you, mate. I feel you. After everything that's transpired, I feel you. It's only one weekend, but I feel like, yeah. Anyway, trust me.
You feel like you can relate after one weekend.
After 1 week, mate. I'll introduce myself now. I'm Matt, and I support Brisbane. And there was a time there between the periods of Voss and Leppich where I just wasn't enjoying footy. That is how poor Brisbane were consistently. I remember the days where I used to look at the fixture and go, when are we playing Carlton, Gold Coast, GWS back when they first joined the league? And it was like, we can get 5 wins this year because we're playing Carlton at the Gabba. That should be a win. And it would be like, everything else was just poor. We'll say poor. But how I got into AFL, my family, all mad Brisbane supporters. So we're supporting Fitzroy before they merged with Brisbane. And traditions just continued, and we're all big Brisbane supporters. Rarely a game goes by where the family WhatsApp's not just going crazy, and we're all.
Good question. So you're a Brisbane supporter, and obviously you live here in Melbourne. So what's it like supporting a team that you can't really go to the games and watch?
Well, it is funny you say that, because it correlates with that whole Brisbane weren't that good, because in the last 6 years, I think I've been to 2 Brisbane games. The last one I went to was actually against your team when Tipper kicked 7. I was there that day. We held such high hopes after a great start to the season to only come crashing down. But then the game before that was 2014, I think. It was North Melbourne v Brisbane at Etihad Stadium, now formerly Marvel. Jared Wright kicked 8 goals. So that's how well we played. That Jared Wright, of all people, kicked 8 goals. And we lost by 94 points, I think. And from that day, it was just a struggle to even get to even though we play like 3 or 4 games down here a year max, it was just a struggle to go to any of them. But look, to be fair, I've been a bit, dogs with the fact that previous year, or that 2019 year where we first year had good, we only played against you guys, which I went to, and then Richmond, where I couldn't go for some reason. Those 2 games are down here, and then obviously with COVID, haven't been able to go back since. But that's me. So, fun.
Great.
Yeah, I know.
All right, so I can tell you're like very heartbroken.
I'm a bit somber this morning.
This last week hasn't been fun.
Nah, it really hasn't. Yeah, but we'll start off. We're going to start off with a bit of game review here, So we'll talk a little bit about week one. We're not going to focus too much on it, but just want to go over what happened week one. So we had the first game, Port Adelaide v Geelong at Adelaide first week, where Powell got over the Cats. That was a good game by Port and really cemented themselves as a team that deserves to be top four, in my opinion. Wines and Boak tore it up as normal. Fantasia with 4 goals as well. So, I mean, that is a very impressive game from a very impressive side. I don't know what you thought of it, but
I thought it was a very impressive game from Port. Probably one of their best games for the whole season, and it's good that you hit your best form during finals as well. And Cats are a top side, so for Port to absolutely demolish them by 43 points. It's obviously a huge effort, and obviously, Wines, Boak stood out, and Fantasia. Unfortunately, Fantasia, he's been out with injuries.
He's been out with injury.
Hasn't it?
Yeah, he has, and I think it was the same at the Bombers as well. He seems to be a bit of an injury-prone player, but he gets 4 in finals. He's done what he needs to do. Hopefully, though, he can get back from that injury. Apparently, he should be able to for prelim, because that's a big out if he can't play, especially when they're playing against Western Bulldogs, who don't really have a good short defender, to be honest, or a lot of good short defenders. They're going to have to contain somehow. They've got to contain Gray, Fantasia, and Motlop. It's going to be, a tough day out for those Dogs defenders.
Yeah, 100%. All right, we'll move on to Sydney versus Giants.
The other one.
This game.
Yes.
Yeah. Giants,
that was very.
Another 1 point. We'll get to the other 1 point game later, but So
I was going to say that in this game, the person that really stood out for me, Isaac Heaney. Isaac Heaney really cemented himself as a player. He sometimes I feel like sometimes he doesn't always have an impact on the game, but he stood up when he needed to. 4 goals in a row, single-handedly kept Sydney in that game. And I mean, you had Luke Parker with 34 as well. Toby Green got 3 goals. Obviously, he got suspended. That's a whole nother topic. We're really a bit late to the party on. But in any case, what did you think should have happened with that Toby Green suspension?
So I thought it was going to be a fine, or at least 1 week, maybe 2. But obviously they gave him 3 weeks suspension, and then the AFL appealed that for a higher suspension, which was I didn't expect. I didn't even know the AFL could do that. Like, the only other example I can remember was Basher Hooley in 2017, I think.
I think the one. One you're talking about. But I mean, it's on the fence, because he tried to argue it wasn't deliberate, but there was no way you could argue that wasn't deliberate. I think the way, like, he was trying to say he was walking to a team huddle, which I could have believed if he didn't turn back around to the umpire after he knocked him and was talking and pointing at the scoreboard. If he just turned around, apologized, kept walking, maybe you could say that he did that. But I just think that 3 weeks, I don't think you could give him more than 3, because if GWS make the grand final on some miracle, he's missing it regardless. So you can't really give him more than 3, in my opinion. Is 3 too much? Maybe. I mean, the rules there.
Maybe, but
well, the rules there. You can't touch the umpires. We can't, just because it's finals, we can't let him off with a fine. 3 weeks, probably a little bit harsh. I was thinking maybe 1 week for him would have been enough to keep me happy.
See, okay, before we go into the next game, my opinion on this is, it's obviously very disrespectful to the umpire if you show an aggressive action towards them, like how Green did, right? If you look at all the camera angles that were provided, he clearly, his body was turned towards the umpire, and he kind of move and kind of bump him.
Yeah.
But the umpire, you got to look at what the umpire said as well.
Yeah.
I'll just be very brief on this, but the umpire, he said he felt disrespected, but it didn't really impact him, throughout the rest of the game. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, Matt Stevic, and that's why Matt Stevic's one of the best in my opinion. But we won't go into that too much. Then on to the next one. My boys playing Melbourne. Yeah, 33-point loss here. Look, I think we're just beaten by a better team. In all honesty, just beaten by a better team on the night. If McStay hadn't got injured that early, maybe it could have been a different story. I don't know if he's going to be a 5-goal difference though, but I reckon we could have stayed in it. And look, our structure was gone because we were trying to play Tom Fullerton, who's probably not the best key forward, on a defensive role on Jake Lever. And as soon as McStay went down, he couldn't do that anymore. He had to compete, and we just got beaten around the midfield as well. I mean, Lachie Neale still had 46 touches, which is a record in the final. That's amazing. But Oliver, Petrarca, Viney, everyone in that midfield group, Alex Neil-Bullen as well with 27. Those guys just beat us. And no other way of saying it. I mean, our midfield was down, but just got soundly beaten.
Yeah.
Set the tone for the rest of the night.
Yeah. I mean, look, Melbourne, they clearly, probably, I think they'll probably, go on to win it all, but that is yet to be decided, obviously. But they're just such a standout team this year, and it's just amazing. Did they even make finals last season? I don't think they did, right?
They didn't.
10th or 9th or something.
Yeah, they were close, but they didn't push in. I think they were 9th or 10th. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember Petrarca in one of his post-game interviews. He just saying, "Look, this all started last year when they weren't happy with how they played, and it just shows like how, as a group, instead of giving up and just being like, oh, we came 9th, 10th. Oh, what do we do? Let's try and let's try and make the 8 by 8th, 7th.
Yeah.
Nah, they push.
Yeah, they're such a well-drilled team, aren't they? They're so well drilled, and it's quite refreshing to see just a team. Yes, they have individual quality, but every single person knows their role, and every single person knows what they have to do, and they just get it done. Whether they can get it done for the next 2 weeks, different story. They've still got to win 2 more games before they can claim best team in the comp. But I reckon if they keep going how they're going now, especially the weaknesses of the other teams, they probably will end up going all the way, in my opinion.
100%. All right, next game. So.
Yes, your boys.
Essendon versus Bulldogs. We don't need to talk about this too much.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think it was a case of you guys just making finals too early. But in saying that,
probably
it's good finals experience, because at least now you guys can say you played finals, you've done it well. And I think the scoreline flatters you a little bit, because I think you guys kind of you ran out of legs / kind of gave up on the game in that late in that fourth quarter when you knew that it wasn't winnable, and they kicked away from you a little bit. But
we were in it for at least 60%, 60-70% of the game, to be honest.
Oh, for sure. Just, yeah.
There's, no excuses. Obviously, we lack in certain areas. Obviously, I don't want to talk too much about the flaws of my own team, but
yeah,
it's just, I don't know.
I think, look,
one thing I've noticed with Essendon, we don't particularly, play well in wet weather, and when it comes to wet weather, you can't stick to one structure and kick it around and all. You just have to kick forward. You got to get down and dirty, and I think the Bombers, we weren't really willing to do that. I think Bulldogs are a superb team, and despite obviously Essendon beating them a couple of weeks prior, it doesn't change how good the Dogs are. You know what I mean? Maybe they just had a bad night. So yeah, and obviously Waitman 4 goals. McRae,
Cody. I'm not going to give your opinion on the Waitman.
But although I do want to address this as an Essendon supporter, I don't, obviously condone the abuse and all
Oh,
that was
100%.
directed towards him because he's obviously a good player. It's just obviously, as an Essendon fan, it will be frustrating to see, he's got a lot of free kicks, but it's footy. Players get free kicks. It's what happens. So you just got to keep level-headed, and we got to take the positives out of this, and just be like, look, it's a bright future. I don't see us going down. I think a lot of fans can agree, not just Essendon fans can, that we're definitely on our way up. So hopefully next season's better.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
And Draper, 44 hitouts, 18 disposals. He's been a star this season. So
yes, you guys have had a bit of a hole in your ruck, haven't you?
We have,
because
yeah.
you've had Bell Chambers and Leuenberger before him, but like
we had this fella named Zach Clark.
Yes.
I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
Yes.
But he used to play for Fremantle.
Yeah, no, I know the man. Look,
one of my mates, he and I think almost every day we just
bag Zach Clark.
Just a little bit.
Anyway,
just a little bit.
But look, yeah, I reckon he's your ruckman of the future, 100% long term. We're going to get this into later episodes because we're going to go over season reviews and stuff like that
100%.
in later episodes. But I do want to hear your thoughts on how, because you guys played with a pretty depleted midfield for this entire year. I mean, you had Cordwell out from round 2. He played 3 games this year. Dylan Shield missed a lot of footy this year. Obviously, Darcy Parish pushing into the midfield really revitalised, what he does in this team. Now the thing is how does everyone fit into that midfield group? And that's something I want to hear your thoughts on later, because you've got obviously got Draper locked as a ruck, but you've got Merritt, who signed a multi-year contract, Parish, Shield, Cordwell, McGrath, Stringer comes in there and pinch hits, and then you've got Devon Smith comes in there as well. He probably will be the first one to get reduced
some of the
midfield time.
Young guns as well, like Archie Perkins
as well. So there's so many players that are going to fit into those 3 midfield spots. So that's something that we're going to have to talk about. And how does Bet Run get everyone into that into that midfield to get the best of? But now we're going to talk about this week
2 of finals.
Yes, week 2 of finals, semi-finals, Geelong and GWS at Optus Stadium.
Ooh, yeah.
So I didn't watch a lot of this game. I'm going to admit I didn't see a lot of it. I know that it was quite tight at the start and then it blew out in the 4th quarter. What did you think? What happened?
To be honest, I think GWS were kind of in it for most of the game. It's just, it got to the last last quarter, last 15 minutes, and then it just blew apart. And obviously, I think this was Geelong at their best. They had a really mature performance. They didn't. It was a pretty tight contest. Like Giants, they kept on, coming. Like they didn't give up, and you could tell that the Giants, they've got, some really, really good players, and they can play without Toby Green there as well.
Yeah,
like
100. Yeah,
like obviously Toby Green's a key player for them, but they still put up a really good performance without him. So,
well, I thought from what I saw, which albeit wasn't a lot, but I thought that the person they actually missed most was actually Jesse Hogan. I reckon they missed Jesse Hogan more than Toby Green.
True, yeah.
Because I just think that going inside 50, had to grub ball a lot to try and, get the ball to ground and, let their smalls have a good crack at it, because we know the talent that Geelong have there, even though they don't have Tom Stewart in that team. They've got Blitzarves, Henderson, Jack Henry, Kolajasny, all really good tall defenders. But when it comes to small defenders, I mean, Kolajasny plays small if need be. And then they've got Jed Hughes and Atkins, right? But they're more rebounding, defenders, and Zach Tui as well. So they don't have a real lockdown small defender. And so I thought that if if the Giants could get it to ground, that was probably their game plan. Get it to ground, let your Bobby Hills, Tim Taranto, if he pushes forward, all of those smalls get a good go at it. But without
100%.
Jesse Hogan, Phil Davis obviously comes in. Phil Davis goes back, throws their structure out a bit, makes it so much harder to do, you know?
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to go over the Brisbane versus Dogs game, and then
Yes.
I'll let you rant and say whatever you want. So
Yeah.
you can rant about the Brisbane game. So yeah, Brisbane versus Dogs. Obviously, Bulldogs won by a point. It's a very close match throughout. McRae stood out with 1 goal and 39 disposals. Bailey Smith, with ice in his veins, kicked the clutch goal. He had a total of 3 goals and 27 disposals. Lachie Neale, 28 disposals. Bont, and I know we're going to get to Bont in a second. He had 29 disposals and he's injured.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes, big injury. Big injury to Bont and the Dogs. If that's a long-term thing or anything longer than a week. I think if he's... So this is the thing. You're going hell for broke. So it's the finals end of the season. After this, he's got 4 months to recover. If he's a couple of weeks off, okay, for me, I'm not sure whether he'll play or not, but you've got to make the decision early in the week, because all it does is I think about Phil Davis warming up before the 2019 grand final. If you remember that, they were a bit 50-50 on whether he'd play. And then they pick him. He does all right, but just the whole frenzy of, oh, will he play? Will he not play? Who's going to lead the Giants out if he doesn't play? You know, I think it played a little bit of a psychological battle within the GWS ranks. So I think if you're going to Bontempelli, I don't know the full extent of the injury yet. We're recording this on Monday, so when we put this out, we may know exactly what's happening. But
yeah,
if he can or can't play, regardless of the injury, you've got to make the call early in the week. I don't know what you think about that, but
yeah. So I think obviously if it's a serious injury, and he needs to rest, I don't think you'd play him this week. And obviously he's probably, you know, the number 1 key player, I reckon, for the Bulldogs. So without him, I don't know. It just depends. Obviously, if he needs to rest because he's injured, then it's advisable. And then yeah, like you wouldn't take the chance to play him, even if it's like minor. You'd want him to, you know, because a minor injury can turn into something bigger. Like if I was to give an example, you know, Langford from Essendon, like he had a hamstring injury, and then they were like, "Oh, yeah, just, you know, 1 or 2 weeks." They bring him back, and then he gets injured again, and then he's out for even a longer time. Yeah. So, yeah, with Bont, you know, you kind of got to look like, okay, we have to win, you know, and then he can play in perhaps, you know, 1 to 2 weeks, depending on, you know, how everything goes. So, yeah, that's my thoughts.
It's a tough call. 100%, it's a tough call. Well, to be honest, my 2 key takeaways from this Brisbane game is that this year, last 2 years we've made finals. We've been pretty good in terms of injuries. So, I mean, before last year, we've had, from memory, other than suspensions, we haven't had any key players get injured. And I don't want to ramble on this too long, but we've had Hipwood go down with an ACL, Rayner with an ACL. We've had Marcus Adams with stress fractures in his foot. Harris Andrews played on 1 leg for half the season since that Adelaide game. He copped a knock in his right knee in the Adelaide game that we played, and he just hasn't looked on it since. Darcy Gardner missed 12 weeks with a fractured shoulder or something along those lines. Lachie Neale missed 7 games this year. I'm not making excuses, but I think this year we've had to combat a lot more than we have in the last 2 years, and it finally just caught up with us. And
fair point.
I'm going to get to this when we talk about Lachie Neale, but I think it exposes we've got a good midfield, no doubt about it. We have a good midfield, but there is a reason why we can't win finals, and it's because our midfield lacks something that the teams like Western Bulldogs, Um, Port Adelaide kind of have it. Melbourne. I'll get into that a little bit later. But there's a glaring weakness in our midfield that we need to fix, and I'll get into that after this. But yeah, that's just my 2 thoughts on our game. Now, predictions for the rest of the finals. What are you predicting will happen? So obviously we've got Melbourne v Geelong this Friday night, and then we've got Port and Western Bulldogs on Saturday night. So what do you think happens from here? Who are your 2 teams that make the grand final? And even if you want to predict a premier, who wins it from here?
All right, so I reckon it'll be Melbourne. Melbourne beat Geelong. Not sure by how much. I think it'll be a pretty tight contest, especially because, to state the obvious, preliminary final, you're going to head into a grand final. So I think it'll be like an extremely tight contest. So I think Melbourne will win. And I think Port will be Bulldogs. But let's just say, briefly, I'm going with Port. Let's just say, though, briefly, Bulldogs don't have Bont for this game. I think Port gets over them, but it'll be tight still.
Yeah.
Both of these games will be tight.
Yeah, it's going to be a tight one. I think it's going to require a bit of adaptation. So Melbourne and Bulldogs, at the start of the season, were the favourites. This week, they're going to have to do major revamps. Melbourne pride themselves on an intercepting game where they have Lever and May up the field, intercepting those long kicks and, keep the ball in that forward half. This week, and they roll with the 3 tools of Lever, May and Petty. So they're the 3 tools they run with. This week, they will have to contend with Jeremy Cameron, Tom Hawkins, Sava Radagalier, and that still leaves Gary Rowan as well. So if Geelong are able to, neglect the influence of those 3 players, I think Geelong will get on top. I just think that Geelong's team defence will be able to counter Melbourne going forward, and as long as they can make sure that those 2 big intercept defenders, May and Lever, can't have a big influence because, they've got to really stick to their man and defend their man, they'll beat them. Port Adelaide Western Bulldogs. I'm actually going to go with the Bulldogs there. If they play Bont, good for them. But I just think their midfield bats so deep compared to Port Adelaide. They've got Boak, Wines, Butters, you could probably say, is on the edge. After that, there's not much more. You've got Carl Amon pinch hitting, Robbie Gray pinch hitting, William Drew, good tagger, but doesn't really offer much going forward. I just think the Bulldogs midfield would be able to get on top of them. Be interesting to see because Port Adelaide's defence is with Alear and Norton. That's a big matchup. Keith has been amazing for the Dogs, and we'll see what he can do against Charlie Dixon. But I just think that the Port Adelaide Smalls will be able to run over the Bulldogs' defence. But if the Bulldogs can win it at the source and starve the opportunities for the Port Smalls, I think the Bulldogs will be able to get it done, even without Cody Waitman, who will probably miss with concussion. And obviously Bontempelli, if he doesn't play, I just think the Bulldogs have got a lot of quality and will be able to get it done.
Yeah. All right. So let's go into some other big news.
Yes. So Collingwood, do you want to run us through?
We're a bit late to this one, but yeah. So Craig McRae, it's been announced as the Collingwood coach. So he had, stints at Richmond, Lions, Hawthorn. He was a triple premiership player at the Brisbane Lions as well. Is that right?
Yeah. In that 3-peat year, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now I have a question, right? So what went wrong with Collingwood
this year?
This season, yes. Yeah, go on.
Look, as we said, going to do season reviews, so I'm not going to get too in-depth into it. I think their list their players on their list is not as bad as they finished 16th in the end, didn't they? Was it 15th? No, it was 16th because Gold Coast
16th.
finished. Yeah. The players on their list are not 16th in terms of quality. They probably, they might not be finals, but they should be up there, right? You know, I'd put them on par with a list of say, a Carlton or a team that's like on the verge of making an 8, a Carlton, a Fremantle, those types of players. I just think the noise around the club, the uncertainty over Buckley's future, all their board stuff going on, I think all that just contributed too much to the club and uncertain direction. But I think with McRae coming in and Lepic as the senior assistant coach, if he makes the journey across, that will be a very, good appointment for the Collingwood.
Sounds good. Okay, we already talked about him. All right, so
the big one.
Actually, you know what? I'll let you talk about this. Like, I'll stay quiet. So Lachie Neale, possibly going to Fremantle. He's requesting a trade. So, floor is yours.
Look, I had a lot of respect for Jules Neal. Not sure if I do it. No, that's a joke. Look, at the end of the day, it'll be tough to swallow. He's been amazing since he's come over. I mean, this season he's had to deal with injury, but he's been amazing since he's come over. And I think that if he wants to go, I honestly will not. I don't think we should stand in his way. I think that if he wants to be where he wants to be to raise his family, that's okay with me. That's not to say I don't want to play hardball with him. I don't want to give him up for nothing. So I think I'm trying to recall the trade that we made for him when we first brought him up. It was like pick 6. It was 2 first rounders and I think a 3rd rounder for him. Right? So I want to be getting at least that back because since he's come up, he's been amazing. He's won a Brownlow. He's played in a team that's made finals 3 years in a row. So you want to give something good for him. So things are going around that potentially we would get 6 from the Chera trade, from Chera to Carlton. So Carlton give 6 to Fremantle, they get Chera. So we'd get 6, 8, 27 and a future first rounder, which would probably end up being like low to mid-teens if Fremantle really push up the ladder. For Lachie, 47 and a future 2nd. Only thing I think that might be wrong with that is that 47, I think they might want a bit more. And if we get all of those picks, we'll have 4 first-round picks. So if we have to give, a 19 or I think we've got 18 or 19, if we have to give that back to Fremantle, that's not the end of the world. In terms of what we do from there, there's 2 things. I don't want to get into this too much because I'll go over this if we ever do a Brisbane review. But there's 2 things we can do. If Fagan wants to stick to the current structure, I think there's guys like Luke Parker, maybe one of the guys from Hawthorn, someone who can come up and we can poach. Or we can shift McCluggage into the midfield, so play him inside midfield rather than on the wing, because I think he's capable of doing that, because we have plenty of wingers. We have Robinson. Okay, he's hitting twilight. We've got Robinson. We've got Kalachi, who's played really well before he got injured. Jackson Pryor. We've got guys that can play the wing. I mentioned earlier, I'm just going to quickly go over this. I mentioned earlier that our midfield is good, but there's a weakness with our midfield compared to the best. You look at the name like an elite team's midfield, just any elite team's midfield, just pick one. Bulldogs, right? Bulldogs starting 3 midfield would be Bontempelli, McRae, Liberatore, right? In that midfield, you have McRae as the possession getter, the guy who gets the ground balls, gets, that dirty ground ball and gets it up to the rest of the players. You've got Liberatore, plays a bit more defensive role, bit more of that midfield enforcer, tackles well, defends the midfield. then what players are actually starting to do is what everyone's calling this dusty role. That midfielder who plays in the midfield, but he plays ahead of the midfield and pushes forward, right? So you've got obviously Dusty does it,
Yeah.
Bontempelli,
Yeah.
Petrarca, Dangerfield, right? I look at my
Stringer
midfield. Stringer from Essendon, right? There are a lot of teams. Yeah, to go. There are a lot of teams that now adopt that strategy. I look at Brisbane's midfield and I go, Jared Lyons, Lachie Neale, Dane Zorko. Dane Zorko, until Lachie Neale got there, was our main possession getter. He's had to adapt, around Lachie Neale. So his input is still good, as a pressure player, right? But he's also just a possession getter. Yep. Jared Lyons, bit of a midfield enforcer, but he also likes to get his own possession. And then obviously we know Lachie Neale, bit of a ball magnet, gets the ball wherever he goes. So what I see from our midfield compared to everyone else is that we just have a lot of possession getters, but we don't have anyone that really pushes forward with the ball. If getting rid of Lachie Neale means that we push McCluggage off the wing into the midfield, which I think McCluggage can play that role well, especially with delivery inside forward 50. I think that if we can push him into the midfield, or we poach someone else from another club to play that dusty sort of role, I think that's what we need to go to the next level. So Lachie Neale leaving will hurt us in the short term, 100%. Whether we've just got to be smart with what we do afterwards. So we've got to get that player who plays the dusty role into our team. So whether it's McCluggage, whether we poach someone, or whether we go to the draft, we've just got to get that into our team. And that's the only positive I can see coming out of Lachie Neale leaving, if he does leave. I mean, we see Danny Daly, list manager at Brisbane, has said that they will release a statement Monday afternoon. Obviously, this is recorded Monday morning. So when you guys are all seeing this, we might be a bit more clear on Lockie's future. But I just think the best way to go about it will be to set up the midfield like the elite midfields in the comp, and that will take us to the next level. And if Lachie Neale has to leave to do it, it will hurt, but in the long term, it will be better for us. That's just my thoughts.
All right. Well, I don't need to add anything onto that.
Yeah.
That's pretty well said. The final little bit we've got is, Bombers, they got rid of their forward coach, Dan Jordan, which is probably understandable. But then again, we kicked the most goals for, I think. We kicked the most points for, we get third, I think. So obviously our forward line did their job, and we had some pretty high scoring games with Adelaide, North, a few other Saints as well. See, the one thing with Essendon's forward line, we've got some really, really good players. We've got some, not so hidden gems, but people like, Peter Wright, Harry Jones, etc.
Yeah.
And then, you were talking about that dusty role, how, for example, for us, Stringer, he'll start in the midfield, he'll grab the ball, kick it in, and he'll just be running forward, right? So Essendon's we've got a lot of talent. It's just, I think in that Bulldogs game, we could have actually used Tipper, small forward, but unfortunately, he didn't get picked. And I think one thing with Tipper, just very briefly, he struggles to stay fit for a whole season, because this season he started really well. He kicked 30 something goals in the first half. Who knows what damage he could have done in the second half? Because I think we got better over time. So yeah, he just lacked a bit. And obviously I think most of us know anyways that he went out due to mental health. So obviously hopefully he's okay and all that. And then we lost Harry Jones due to injury. And Harry Jones actually, he moves well, he marks well, he kicks really, really well. So, that's another positive for Essendon's forward line. Obviously, Stringer, as I mentioned before. Who else is there? Yeah, Peter Wright. See, Peter Wright's, he's inconsistent. He'll have, a few days, he'll have a few games where, he'll kick 3, 4, 7, and then it gets to, some other games and he just kicks nothing, and he barely has an impact. Like, I think the Gold Coast game, he kicked nothing. Like, I think he was being tagged. He had like maybe 2 or 3 plays on him, which probably shows how dangerous he can be if obviously he just had like a 1-on-1, because he's got strong hands, and he can kick really well. But yeah, I don't know. Essendon's forward line towards the end of the season was kind of weird. We got Francis down forward because he's normally our defender, and then all of a sudden he's forward. And he did kick, I think one of the games he hit like 2-3 goals, but he wasn't really as effective as as like a normal forward would be. So I think it just shows that obviously when we go to the draft, we need a key forward. We need someone that will really lift up our forward line. And obviously Hooker, he was obviously one of our key forwards as well. I guess due to fitness, age, he was still kicking goals, but I guess, when the ball was on the ground, he wasn't as effective. Any other player would just take it off him because he's not as, agile and as quick as some other players would be. But yeah, we definitely need a key forward. And I think when we go to the draft, we have to, because, if we can get if we can get another young gun, someone like, like Harry Jones, who is, quick, good hands, can kick really, really well, I think. And, obviously if we utilize him next season, I think our forward line will be really, really dangerous. And hopefully Tipper comes back and, and hopefully Peter Wright can have some more consistency in his game as well.
So, I think, the forward line coach, he's done his job. Dan Jordan, done his job. He's done well. I think it's just a little bit more personnel as well. I think you guys probably need, Archie Perkins, and Archie Perkins just needs a few more games. Harry Jones needs more games. Probably need to target another key forward, because I don't know if Harry Jones, Aaron Francis, and Peter Wright are the guys to propel you into that top 8. Probably need a better one for Aaron Francis. Like, I don't mind Peter Wright if you want to go with the 3 tall options playing that ruck forward role, but I think as a legitimate key forward, you guys need to be targeting that. Maybe, I don't know what picks you guys have. Obviously, we'll get to trade talk and rumors and stuff later. I know Gunston could potentially be on the table, so maybe a Jack Gunston could be a good pickup for you guys. But yeah, I mean, by the sounds of it, you guys just need a bit more experience in that team before you guys really push and really cement yourselves as a finals team.
Oh, I mean, just quickly, like, obviously we're a really, really young team, and like, got super young players like Perkins, Cox, Jones. So yeah, in terms of like our push for finals and winning a final next season, I think we're obviously going to be closer than we were this year. But hopefully, next season is good. Because,
as long as you don't regress. I think that's your next goal. As long as you don't regress, you've done well. I am just before we wrap up, I am going to go a little bit off script here. This is going to be a bit radical. So we are going to be uploading this onto Spotify and YouTube. So I don't know what platform the listeners will be on, but if you're on Spotify, we're also on YouTube. If we're on YouTube, we're also on Spotify. Always the Footy Ramble. We're also on Instagram, the Footy Ramble on there as well. So if you could chuck us a follow, that would be a major appreciation from the both of us. One thing we are looking to do, though, is we are looking to, as we've mentioned throughout the thing, we have looked to do season review of teams and over the summer. So if anyone would like to join as a guest to talk about their team, you can go to our Instagram and DM the Footy Ramble account. We'll get back to you about potentially hopping on to talk about your team in the near future. So that will be an off-season thing, and we've got a few already lined up. But if you guys want to talk about your team, more than welcome to drop a DM at the Footy Ramble on Instagram, and we can sort that out for you. But I think that sorry, you go.
And just to like add on, like a very general statement, like this is just for fun. We're not trying to revolutionize the footy world. We're not trying to be the Heath and
Daisy
show.
and Daisy show.
Heath and Daisy show. We're not, we're not trying to be like that. We're just trying to have some fun and talk about footy. So hopefully whoever watches it enjoys it.
Well, we actually never mentioned how we know each other. For all those who don't know us personally, Roque and I went to school together, so we've been friends for a while now, and we both love footy. So we just thought, why not start, a podcast together where we just talk about something that we're both passionate about. So, it's just a bit of fun. So any feedback would be great, but just know that if it's not the upstanding, big professional, Heater and Daisy show that everyone thought we were getting here, it's probably not going to be that way. But yeah, look, and apologies again, because we're both obviously from Melbourne, that this is over Zoom for now. Once we get out of lockdown, hopefully we can do a bit of in-person recording. But for now, we're just going to be stuck on Zoom until Dan Andrews decides to let us out of our houses, pretty much.
And just to add on like how we met, like it was probably like year 9 or year 10, and obviously Matt, he didn't have any friends, so I took him under my wing. I was like, all right, hey, do you wanna talk? You wanna hang out?
Okay, buddy. Whatever you think. We'll let you
So,
have that one if you really think that. I've always
been this really nice guy, and Matt, as I said, Matt didn't have any friends. Took him under my wing, and now look at him now.
Is this like a good time to tell you that I didn't vote for you for college captain? Is that like, is that an appropriate?
Look, yeah. I'm just gonna be honest. When it came to that, I didn't care. I promise. like I didn't expect votes. I didn't expect teachers. I didn't expect anything. So like, if I just became a prefect, if I just became a nobody, I would not have
Wouldn't have minded. Oh well.
Anyways,
lucky you. Yeah, I put you as like 6th behind everyone else. I won't, say names, but anyway, we're getting off footy. But yeah,
we'll go back on footy. Oh wait, we got to wrap up.
Yeah, wrap up for this week. So thank you guys for tuning in. So we're going to be posting this. Obviously, this will be up on Wednesday. This will be until the end of the season. We're going to be posting every Wednesday. Post-season, we'll have to see. In terms of content, like obviously early season, we'll have the draft, trades, all that stuff. So we'll be probably posting every Wednesday for a bit, but once it dries up around Christmas and pre-season next year, we might reduce the amount that we're doing just until season starts, and then we'll be back into it at the start of the 2022 season. Yeah, so.
Yeah, well, thanks everybody for watching, whoever watched.
Listen.
Next week will probably be the same thing. We'll cover the prelim finals results, any news, any new coaching
any news
movement.
If coaching movement, player movement. We'll see how Lachie Neale does. If anyone else decides to request a trade, obviously because we've got that big Chera trade going on. We'll see what happens there. And so sounds good. Thanks for joining, guys. This is the Footy Ramble with Roque and Matty G.